Welcome to this Brain Unlock video, Why Organisations and Societies Fail. Each of us has experienced the ridiculous behaviours inherent in human behaviour when one person or group decides to bring down or attack another individual or group. Why do we behave like this? Well, the answer can be found in how your brains are structured. Did you notice that I used the word brains, plural? You may not be aware of it, but you just don't have one brain, you have in fact three, and this is where the problem lies. To understand why you have three brains, and the impact this has on behaviours within organisations and society, let's now take a quick look at the evolution of the human brain. The first brain to evolve 250 million years ago was the reptilian brain. It consists of a brainstem that controls and monitors vital body functions such as heartbeat, respiration, body temperature, digestion and breathing. The reptilian's brain in humans is essentially the same as reptiles and acts in involuntary, impulsive, as well as compulsive ways and contains program responses that are rigid. The next brain to evolve approximately 50 million years ago was the mammalian brain, and again, essentially humans have as part of their brain structure the same brain as mammals. The mammalian brain consists primarily of the limbic system, which is also known as the emotional brain, and was originally designed to be a control centre to enable animals to experience and express emotions. Located within the limbic system is the amygdala. The amygdala plays an important role in emotions, especially fear. It regulates our interactions with the environment and relates to our survival, such as our fight and flight response. This part of the brain evolved to keep mammals and then humans safe from attack. For example, being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. It works by shutting down all unnecessary parts of the body that are not directly involved in immediate survival. This fight and flight mode is an inbuilt automatic response that just kicks in when we feel we're under threat. This on the surface seems simple enough. However, let's return to this discussion of the amygdala after we have examined the next part of our brain's evolution. The final brain to evolve approximately 400,000 years ago is the human brain, which consists of the neocortex. It is the largest brain structure in humans and accounts for 2/3 of our brain mass. It is often referred to as the thinking brain and allows us the opportunity to consciously control our actions and behaviours. An important part of the human brain is the frontal lobe, or sometimes known as the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain is responsible for watching, supervising, guiding, directing our behaviour. It supervises and governs abilities such as decision-making, time management, judgment, impulse control, planning, organising, and critical thinking. Our ability as a species to think, plan ahead, use time wisely, communicate with others, and to be a strategic and creative thinker is heavily influenced by this part of the brain. The frontal lobe is also responsible for controlling our limbic system and amygdala responses. Let's now return to our discussion of the amygdala. Now, the problem that exists in modern day life is that we have taken our mammalian brain's flight and fight response and have reprogrammed it to operate when we feel under any type of physical or emotional attack or threat. For example, someone who reports to you gives you the wrong information for an important meeting you needed to attend. This may trigger an amygdala fear response of looking incompetent that causes you to verbally attack the person who provided the information. Or someone yelling at you causes you to try and flee the scene. This response could be either physical or emotional, leading you to flee the scene physically or emotionally. It is important to realise that fleeing doesn't always relate to physically leaving the scene. Sometimes physical flight isn't always possible. So you need to resort to the next best thing of emotionally or mentally protecting yourself by switching off emotionally. This can be very dangerous to emotional and mental welfare if done on a regular basis. There is also a third reaction between fight and flight, and that is a freeze response. Most of us have experienced this in our lives. This is where your brain totally shuts down and you remain frozen, unable to either fight or flee the scene. For the purposes of this video, we'll be focusing on fight and flight responses. There are many examples, both personally and professionally, where we automatically go into fight or flight mode. Your average day is full of them. Interesting enough, most of our fight and flight responses are not life-threatening, but we react as if they are. This means that we see threats where they don't really exist and respond to others and the environment as if they are out to get us. In fact, many people in organisations and society are constantly living in fight or flight mode. This leads to increased levels of anxiety, stress, and a feeling that we need to try to constantly control our environment so that we can remain safe from attack. The fight and flight response usually operates at an unconscious instinctive level, meaning that most of the time you are not consciously aware that you're behaving like this. However, I am sure that if you start to think about your behaviours and motivations, you will become much more aware of the fight and flight behaviours in both yourself and others. Let's now look at a typical example of fight and flight operating in the workplace. You have this great idea of how you can improve productivity. The problem is that it is being blocked by another department, so what do? Of course you're upset about this, as you believe that this idea will get you that promotion you have been working so hard for. You therefore see this other department as a threat to your promotion and livelihood, and this causes you then to either move into fight or flight response. If you choose fight mode, you devise an aggressive approach which will ensure that you get your idea through. This, of course, comes at a cost, but who cares? You will deal with that issue when it arises through the same aggressive bullying tactics that you are using now. After all, experience has taught you that it works, and it is the path of least resistance, or so you think. And this short-term gain comes at the price of long-term organisational success. If you choose flight mode, you decide to let the idea go, as it just isn't worth getting this department offside. You need to look after your own safety in the organisation, and the backlash that might occur could put your job or any future promotion at risk. When people regularly choose flight mode, they run the risk of feeling powerless and adopting a victim mentality. Victim mentality and bullying tactics are literally killing organisations, or at least making them extremely toxic to work in. Many organisations are unconsciously limping along, continually in survival and putting out fires mode. Of course, this just leads the powers to be to believe that this is just the nature of business and just accept it as the status quo. The human brain, especially the frontal lobes, evolved so that we could control or override our limbic system's inappropriate fight and flight responses. However, the problem is that because the mammalian brain evolved before the human brain, the limbic system kicks in slightly before the human brain, causing us to often feel that we are out of control with our reactions. However, the truth is you are not powerless, and you can train your brain to stop these non-life-threatening fight and flight responses. In order to do this, you need to firstly recognise that you have a choice, and you need to use that choice to make a decision to take back control of the limbic system. The simplest way to do this is to practice activating the frontal lobe by using the techniques of questioning and decision-making. You need to start by firstly stopping when your fight and flight responses and emotions are out of control and ask yourself a simple question, such as, is this reaction going to resolve this situation? Or, is this reaction the best way to resolve this situation? The fact is that the limbic system, including the amygdala and the frontal lobes, cannot operate at the same time. You are either in one or the other. So when you start asking questions, it immediately takes you into the thinking, reasoning, and problem-solving part of your brain, and out of your knee-jerk emotional reactions. It is in this part of the brain that you can discover the best long-term solution. It is your creative thinking centre where your true genius resides. Whilst you are caught in the brain's limbic system, you will never truly resolve any situation. In fact, you will just be creating more short and long-term problems for yourself and the organisation. Earlier in our example, where your idea was being blocked, instead of remaining at the mercy of your fight and flight responses, you can choose differently to activate that part of your brain that has the power to find a solution where everybody wins. You could start this process by asking, why is Department X blocking my idea? The truth is that all fight and flight responses stem from fear. So there is a really good chance that Department X is fearful about something. So when you start asking the question, what is Department X fearful of, and how can I allay that fear, you are then free to start tapping into the creative, problem-solving part of your brain. It is also important to recognise in our example, the response to either fight or flee the scene was also based on fear. Fear stands for false evidence appearing real. In this case, the fear was, if the idea didn't get implemented, the promotion wouldn't happen. This, of course, is not the case. The truth is there are many ways to secure a promotion, but in this case, the mind was being ruled by an erroneous fear that if the idea didn't get implemented, then the promotion would not occur. This is just one small example, but the truth is this type of fear thinking is happening all the time in organisations and society. If you start questioning your motives a lot more by stopping and asking the question, is this action or decision based on fear, then you will be in a position to start taking back control of your animal brain's limbic system and shift into your human brain's frontal lobe, where your creative and thinking genius resides. The majority of problems within organisations and society are based on fear. Most of us are using our mammalian brain or limbic system rather than our human brain and our frontal lobe. Have you ever noticed when things get really bad within organisations and society, people start behaving like animals? All this fear-based behaviour is destabilizing organisational performance, economic growth, as well as our personal success, health, joy and peace of mind. It is time for change, and change starts with each and every one of us. But more importantly, it starts with the right leadership within organisations and society. Right now, leaders have a choice to keep themselves and their people stuck in their animal brains, or empower themselves, their teams and the organisation to use the gift of the human brain.